Hello and welcome, zombie fans. This is Reanimated. It is our 86th episode, and we are talking to you from California and New York, as we tend to. My name is Stuart Tiffin. I'm one of your hosts, and joining me is the invincible H.A. Conrad. How are you today?
Glorious.
In all of her glory. And we are going to be talking to you thanks to our good old buddy pals at Squarespace. They are the all-in-one platform that make it easy to create your own website, build it beautiful, and do so by using our code ZOMBIE at checkout, and you'll get 10% off on all of your website making dreams. So thank you to them, and let us now talk, HA, about I don't know, the bane of our existence slash the thing that we probably overhyped and can't help but suffer from our own high expectations, and that is the final episode in the first season of Fear the Walking Dead. And there's also the webisode that we can discuss a little bit too, since that just came out. Um, let's start though with the premiere or the finale. I feel like there's too much riding on it. Um, do you have an initial feeling that you want to express?
I do. It as I suspected, there was no way to make up for the very slow pace, and I feel a lack of imagination, quite frankly, for this whole series. I don't feel as if this series has the tension or that the characters are holding my interest. I shouldn't. I guess there is a little bit of fun when you're voting for characters to die, but it just didn't get there for me. I don't know if you felt differently, and it did. It made me a little bit sad because I felt like there was a way to sort of resuscitate parts of this, so to speak. It just didn't get there for me. How about you?
I Yeah, I enjoyed this episode more than the others, obviously, because they threw the kitchen sink at us, right? They had giant zombie fight, they had action, they had drama, they had all the characters on screen at once, they had growth, they had death. It was it was like all the ingredients of a perfect Walking Dead episode. But of course, as we've talked about, yeah, it came too little, too late, or not too little. This was just enough, but it should have been kind of like some of this every episode of the
Right.
the 6 episode run.
There
So
still weren't enough zombies, though, in my opinion.
they were okay. I mean, there were 2,000, and frankly, yeah, that shouldn't have been too many, but it was too many. And this is we can get into the list of specific complaints now, if you like.
Okay. Well, I
uh,
mean, why don't we talk about the things that we liked about it?
you're right. We should focus on the positive.
I want to focus on some of the positive things. I liked that they finally got out of the house and that they're moving. That's great. I like that Travis is questioning some of the actions in terms of the torture because I think any normal human would. I still don't, like Ruben Blades. I still don't fully agree with the level that he has taken it, and even I don't know. There's still this part of me that's like, okay, so Cobalt, they were gonna what? Kill people when? How? That still hasn't happened. They just kind of took off. And I mean, maybe it's that everybody was so overwhelmed that they just couldn't come back and do that deed. I don't really know, or I don't even know. Is that going to involve? Did they ever say exactly how it was going to happen? They were just going to
No,
bomb the crap out of them. Was that sort of the idea?
I think the one of the words used was humanely, but
Right.
I don't know that they never spelled it out. What we were I guess are led to believe is that it would not be unlike Atlanta with the napalm uh,
Yeah, maybe.
bombing.
But in any case, I just feel like that was it was a little bit too easy for them to escape, but I'm still very happy to see them on the move. I thought some of the interactions between the different characters were realistic, with Ophelia and her dad and all that kind of weirdness going on. Um,
I, Okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to stay positive. I was gonna point out something that I thought was
no, go ahead.
an odd interaction when she's still like reeling from the realization that he's basically a mass murderer slash torturer. They haven't left the house yet. He like reaches out and puts a hand on her, and I thought that like when I'm watching him reach out to touch her, I'm like picturing in my head that she's gonna like have a twitch or like a a
And she didn't,
revulsion
right?
response, and she doesn't. But he takes his hand away really fast, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm no student of the human condition or anything, so I don't know like what we were supposed to expect. But did you not think that there was going to be some kind of weird like "don't touch me" reaction when he did that?
Yeah, I kind of expected that, or that she would just sort of move away and not really go near him. So that was kind of weird. But I do like that they were on the move. They have a plan. They're going to go and rescue Nick and Liza
And Griselda,
and
for all I know.
Griselda, and they are going to do that. Their plans are rather fascinating to me. So apparently their plan is to unleash the walkers from the arena, which is what Ruben Blades does, and just kind of walks pretty far ahead of them. That's kind of interesting.
Are you still focusing on the positive?
No, I like that there was some kind of a plan, and that they had one, and that they were working together as a team, which is pretty much the first time we've ever seen this group of people in agreement. So great. And I do like how swiftly they are reacting to things. But yeah. Anyway, and then there's the weird stuff in the hospital with Liza and the doctor, and the realization that the rescue team isn't coming. And I
Yeah.
thought that that was pretty interesting.
I enjoyed
I
that
did
scene.
enjoy it. Although again, and this is not focusing on negative, it's just more it posed a lot of questions. Like, it seems super weird. Why wouldn't the transport just land? It's not like, I mean, was the idea that they weren't sure whether the people that they were going to transport, like whether that had been breached, like, because that wasn't clear to me.
I mean, I don't know, from the air, it looked pretty. You saw how quickly the fence came down and the base was overrun. I
True,
mean,
true.
our sense of like how much time is passing is really kind of choppy.
Okay.
But I think I think it was a fair assessment on their part that they were like, you know what, this is a terrible idea. We're gonna leave. So I couldn't blame them for that.
I also did actually like some of the interactions between Nick and Strand, and how Strand's setting the whole, you need to take care of yourself now, you can't help anybody else. And I mean, and Nick's a little bit concerned, but still listens to him. And at least I'm not so wild about the whole how forceful it is, but at least it sets up his character as he is. So it's pretty clear where he stands. So there's that. Although one thing that again I was just wondering about, Nick is awfully healthy right now, and I can't figure out how he is super healthy. Like,
Yeah, maybe it's because he's been on like modified detox, except for that whole morphine drip period.
maybe it's just sort of, I would think that he'd be probably having some super withdrawal symptoms at this point, but maybe not.
How many days does it take to kick heroin?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
All I have to go by is train spotting, and that's very unclear.
That was like a 3-day weekend, I thought, or something.
Right. But in any case, so I do like how they finally get out of the pens, how everybody is out of whatever little holding pen they've been in, whether it be the house or the holding pens at the base, and are moving around, because that's when the interesting stuff starts to happen. But again, they do some of the sort of classic stuff, splitting up and all that kind of thing. Although in some sense it does make a little bit of sense, because what is Alicia and Chris going to do? So that makes sense for them to not go along, but I don't know. I liked the fact that we actually saw walkers in this episode, and that we're finally moving on to the next stage, but it just wasn't, there wasn't the impact. I didn't feel like satisfied after watching this episode, or like I really desperately want to see what happens next. I don't know. Where were you?
I'm interested to see what happens next. I'm trying to think of like the positive things I want to say about this, but other than the fact that it met my expectations for an episode of this show, I have more gripes than pros to throw at you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to stay negative.
No, go for it. I'll admit
campaign.
that was pretty hard for me to even pull out some of those positive things.
You know what? I liked most of the things you pointed out, but I also disliked some of them at the same time. So
Yeah,
I
me
liked
too.
when they were packing up their house to leave. They're like, "Okay, this is it. We're getting out of here." I was like, "Good idea. You guys should go." I love pack it up quickly scenes. Those are my faves. I like that I did enjoy the back and forth on the Corporal Adams, or Andy Adams. Is that his real name?
Andy, that's what we're just calling him.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Travis is making these calls, and Maddie just backs him up immediately as soon as Salazar finds out that he let him go. She's like, "It was the right thing to do," not even having to think about it. Even though she was pro-torture, she's also now pro-torture release, which is cool. The thing is, like, yeah, okay, they're all on the same. Some of them are on the same page with like torture is bad, or it was okay, but then we should let him go. But then apparently nobody has any qualms about letting 2,000 zombies into the community.
Right. I
And
know. Totally. That's a bit of a conflict of interest, isn't
yeah,
it?
and nobody had any problem leaving their compound without telling any of their neighbors what was happening. Like none of them apparently know. They're just going to leave them to find out that the soldiers are gone, and they don't shut the gate behind them as they leave. So they're just essentially all about murdering innocents at this point, or whether or not it's aggressive, like they're actively doing it or they're just doing it by omission. I don't know that it makes that much difference. And if that's like the moral of the story, I feel like they've made this jump pretty quickly. You
Right.
know, in 6 episodes, in 2 weeks, 15 days, or whatever it's been. Now they're totally cool with just having releasing all of these zombies into their neighborhood, and they've admitted that their community isn't far away from where this base is, and like Salazar walked there outside the
Well, I
wire.
thought it was also interesting that when they left their community, they left them totally vulnerable because nobody closed that gate that we saw.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned.
I mean, and part of me is like, did we just not see that? I hope that they would have done that. It seems a little weird given how they're looking at the other neighbors. And the only comment we have is from Ophelia, which is like, they didn't do anything when they took our people. And it's like, well, what exactly were they supposed to do?
Now, you know that I land with her on this one, but it's still bullshit that Maddie and Travis, who know these people, wouldn't say anything. Yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of just nuts. And like, Travis still has this moment where he's looking in the window and the people are like playing a board game at their dining room table. Everybody's just doomed. So one of the things I did like about this episode, sort of, is the fact that it's called The Good Man, right? And it's about Travis, essentially. This episode, this whole season, in a way, is about Travis being this guy who's like holding this group together and being kind of an optimist in the way that gets most people killed on The Walking Dead, at least as far as the other show goes. But then by the end, having to do a couple of things that are really difficult. And like both of his wives or Maddie and Liza at one point or another in this show have been like, if I ever say this to each other, you have to kill me because you can't let Travis do it. It'll break him. And then, like vice versa, Maddie says that to Liza, then Liza says that to Maddie. But then eventually, of course, Travis does end up having to end Liza at the end of the episode. And that was, I mean, it's nice symmetry. It's nice storytelling, I guess, structure. And by the end of the episode, do we know, is Travis actually broken or not? Or is he just no longer the good man? And I kind of, I really enjoyed that structure, at least.
I like that structure, and I also like the fact that, I mean, and this is something you and I had talked about initially, like, look, relationships get extraordinarily complicated, and they change, and clearly there was some tension between him and Liza to the point where, we even saw them arguing before everything came to pass in terms of people being aware of what was going on. When he came to find her and Chris, where she's kind of like, oh, you're just being annoying and controlling or whatever, But when it came down to it, she really trusted him and trusted his judgment. And I don't think that their respect for each other changed. And in the end, it seemed totally right that he was going to take that responsibility. And
Yeah.
and similarly, when Liza took responsibility for Griselda's death, like for doing the deed with the bolt gun, it was a similar feeling to that, which is like, look, this is horrible and we hate doing this, but this is what you do for the people that you love. And you do this so that they don't come back and that others don't have to suffer by seeing them like this, as well as the fact that obviously they would be dangerous. But I liked that a lot, and I thought that was one of the better moments.
Yep.
And again, you're right. We haven't seen whether Travis is broken or not, and of course he is super, like, he's having a rough time right now, sitting there lying in the surf, being comforted. But imagine what it would have been had Maddie done that. And it's her taking out, like, how does Chris not resent her? How does Travis really not resent her? It's just like a weird thing.
Oh yeah, impossible.
It's an impossible
Totally.
situation. So I agree with you. I thought that was one of the strongest things and strongest storylines throughout the whole series.
There were a couple of other moments where Travis's way of thinking is challenged, whether or not he's there. Like when Salazar is like, letting him go was a mistake, and see what doing the right thing gets you. Like that's obviously a direct challenge to his way of doing stuff earlier on in the episode. And you could still argue that he's still everything he's done so far has been doing the right thing, even to the point where he beats the hell out of Andy the soldier, because even though that's like a departure from his like diplomacy gets you where you need to go. He has a moment of like, you betrayed me and the trust I put in you, and therefore now you deserve to have your face beaten in. And the other time that his way of thinking is challenged is when Strand leaves the holding area and says, we're not going to release anybody else because it doesn't help us. But then, of course, as soon as Travis sees that room, he starts opening up cells, right? But we don't get to see whether that helps him or not, or hinders him. So in a way, like even in this episode, there's a couple of other times where we are like shown his way of doing things, and we hear from other people who he's basically now going to be traveling with, who think what he's doing is the wrong way of doing stuff. Anyway, so just a couple of other thoughts on that. However, major gripe, put all that lovey-dovey stuff aside, major gripe, letting the 2,000 zombies out on Salazar's part. If you look past the fact that the rest of the cast seems to think that this is okay, of course, I'm sitting here thinking this is a hugely short-sighted and basically murderous act. I don't like the fact that Salazar is getting set up to be like an Augusto Pinochet type character.
No, me neither.
It's super annoying. And you know, some of the other reviews that I've read, I read AV Club and IO9, and they're very positive about this episode, of course, because this is like hands down, objectively a better episode than what we've had. They're like much more willing to forgive this act for the sake of storytelling.
I'm really not, only because he, as one of the characters that, and despite his crazy methods and torture that we have seen him do to people, and he has had his eyes open about the actual situation. And I just can't believe that he would take the risk of letting the not being totally selfish and not even thinking about the community, but thinking about them and getting the people that they need to get out. Like,
obviously, they ran into problems because of that decision, didn't they?
Well, they did, and so I just
they lost
can't.
Liza because of that decision.
They did, and I can't imagine that he, knowing the stuff that he did, that he supposedly does, and having seen like governments crumble and just the disarray that happens, and how fervently he feels that they must go and rescue Griselda at the very least. I don't know how he really feels about Nick and Liza. I don't think he really cares that much about them, quite frankly. But yeah. I can't imagine that, being as selfish as he is, and as we have seen him in terms of his own family, that he would risk that escape. And you know what's going to happen. I mean, there's no question about what releasing this number of walkers is going to do. They've seen what damage even a few can do.
But this leads me to gripe number 2.
What is that?
That also relates to the 2,000 walkers.
Right.
This is a military base made up of National Guardsmen who are they're supposedly 2 weeks into the mission, combat proven. They know how to kill zombies because they've cleared Los Angeles from our perspective, even though you and I think that that's absurd. Why can't like 50, let's say, like conservatively, let's say there's only 50 soldiers there. Why can't 50 soldiers shoot 2,000 very slowly moving zombies? In the time that I feel like storyline wise, it's like 10, 15 minutes of them shooting constantly, and it doesn't look like any zombies are getting killed. They're the most incompetent Stormtrooper-esque firing line I've ever witnessed. And they're all, of course, shooting on full auto, which is my everlasting gripe about this show.
Yes, I know.
So I feel like the soldiers should have fared much better, to the point of potentially even fighting off this quote-unquote attack. And like they only have one sentry post. There's only one tower around the entire perimeter that we see.
The perimeter with just the chain link fence does not seem extraordinarily strong. And the fact that these civilians just were able to get in with a pair of bolt cutters is highly questionable. So, yeah, I agree with you. This is a little weird and stupid.
It's super weird. Super weird and stupid. And It's slightly annoying, slash very annoying. But let's, okay, for the sake of storytelling again, put that aside. They have to, for whatever reason, have this be like a knockdown, drag out fight against zombies where most people are going to get killed to show us that like humanity really is, can't stand a chance. Honestly, I feel like if he had let 20 zombies go, there still would have been a complete mobilization of the base, um, and they would have probably had the distraction they needed to get in. Maybe not 20, maybe 100, but still, they didn't need to release Armageddon, whatever. All right, so that aside,
Like the other part of the whole LA scenario. I mean, again, and we've mentioned this so many times during this series, it's if you're going to do a zombie story in an urban place, do it realistically. And we see one shot, maybe like a sort of like an overhead shot of one freeway being sort of backed up with traffic.
beautiful shot though. Oh wait, no, sorry, I meant
It's
the blackout shots at the beginning of the
no,
episode were
those
also.
were great, and sort of seen a little bit on the highways and stuff.
Yeah,
But they still have free sailing, and then nobody else figured out that they can go and like go along the riverbed down to the water, and it's like no, if the there are other people that are going to figure that out. And those were going to be, this would be, that whole city would be one big traffic jam because there really isn't, there are many more cars than really should be in that environment. That's why their traffic is so crappy. And
yeah,
even
yeah.
if there's a little bit of rain, that whole, like, their whole traffic system is destroyed. So the free sailing that they have to get to the waters is, again, totally unrealistic and crazy to me. And I don't know why they've made some of these decisions. It just feels, I get that it's probably a budget reason, but it's sort of like if you're going to go all out and do something in LA, do it freaking right. You know, just one person's opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't really have much more to say about like the fight in the kitchen is, I guess, pretty good. It's most of the action in this episode is very choppy, like
Well,
even to the point where the lights are flashing on and off, so you can't really tell what's going on.
yeah.
You know, but
And they
like
and they have
Liza,
those scary moments where Nick's not going to get out and you think he's going to bite it and then he doesn't.
he even gets to say go,
Yeah.
to his mom, but then he still makes it out. And Liza walks around a corner, and a zombie that just happened to be standing there completely quietly, then like leaps out and attacks her. So they did some kind of like basic jump scare type stuff, which is fine. Um, Liza, oh, one other thing that kind of bothered me, but was good for, I guess, pointing out just how the situation was breaking down was when Liza is told to leave by Exner and she runs out into the yard and somebody's like trying to get her to get on the truck and she just stands there and looks around with her mouth open for a while and you get to see
Yeah.
some bad stuff happening. It is pretty cool, like the guy who gets bit and then runs into the tail rotor of the helicopter.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty damn cool. But the fact that she's actually literally she's gonna stand there for I don't know a minute and a half while this is all happening.
And just
Um,
stand there like an idiot. Yeah, that's kind of dumb.
it was a little weird.
I also think, and I feel like they missed an there. Of course, we have the great little comment by Maddie when they go back up into the ward and they find that the doctor has basically taken out every single patient in there,
Yeah,
and she's, and there's this thing where like a very quick, oh, she's lost, she's gone, that kind of thing from Maddie.
yeah,
And I thought that that was actually pretty cool because this is sort of the first instance where you're like, okay, we can't slow down and care enough to bring her along because, you know, this is something that we have seen at least with the neighbor
it's
who was
tragic
losing.
though.
It is tragic, and I feel like they lost an opportunity to bring the doctor along a little bit because
They need the doctor.
whether she's lost or not, she's a doctor. I also don't
Yeah,
feel like this doctor would have been that lost. I don't
no,
think so at all. And so I don't buy everything that we've learned about her character. I don't buy that this is what would have happened. And I think it would have been a lot more interesting to have her with the dynamic of this group because she's been a bit on the inside with the military.
hmm
And I just feel like this was just totally a lost opportunity to incorporate her into their group or at least see what happened. And it was just kind of a wasted, to me, it was wasted character development. And who's to say, maybe she'll pop up later, but I kind of feel
Wow,
not.
Doesn't seem likely. I mean, maybe she'll show up in the season premiere next season. But yeah, it sucks. This episode they lose not only her,
But Liza.
and Liza, but it's also ironic that that Maddie does say that about her, and they just leave her behind when she was the one telling Liza earlier, like, be brutal. Who is actually your family? You know. So it's kind of like a little bit of karma there for her in a way. Strand is still just a cartoon character to me, and I can't get past that. And he's also like this fantastical rather, not fantastic, and like where he goes back to his mansion with everybody, and he also says, "Oh, don't go east. That's no good." Why do they go? Why do they believe him? I don't know. They go with him to his house.
Clearly he's a trustworthy person.
Clearly he knows stuff. He goes back to his house and starts packing up suits and showing off his nice CGI yacht.
It was so CGI too. It was like, guys, really?
It's the least real yacht in America.
It really was.
Yeah, I guess it's just another thing to remind us that somehow this show doesn't have any budget, even though Fear the Walking Dead has been ruling American television for 6 years. Like, why don't they have a budget?
Well, right, and clearly it was renewed, so doesn't it seem as if they should have one?
What does it cost to get a good CGI yacht that isn't moving?
Forget
for your
that.
Final episode of the
Forget
season?
that. Like, what does it take to get a good army of walkers going? I mean, as I said before, if you're going to make the attempt and you have all the support and the fan base of The Walking Dead in Atlanta to go ahead and do something like an urban environment, you should have the budget to do it right. And if you aren't doing it right, it's going to be incredibly disappointing, as this was. And I don't understand why that is, because it's not... I mean, as when you and I talked about when we first watched the first season of The Walking Dead, those Atlanta scenes were incredible. And that it was not even as large. I mean, it's a different kind of urban environment, but it was the same. It's a city. Mm-hmm. And they did a much better job at showing how insane and overrun something like that could get so very quickly. And I just feel like LA should have been even more incredibly insane, and they didn't do that. So let's see what happens. I did not read any of the reviews of the finale before I talked to you. I deliberately stayed away. But was there any, other than the fact that they were like, this didn't suck as much as the other episodes, were people in favor of this series?
Yeah, I only read the IO9 and AV Club, and they were fairly positive. They both were still kind of like, there were parts of it that were like, why did Andy purposefully go and find them only to like inevitably be killed by them? Like what possible... Yeah, the guy cut your arm up. Guess what? Your arm is still attached. You still have full use of it. Just run away. Why the hell would he go after them? And then now he's dead, or he's gonna die. Doesn't make any sense. So there were some things that they're pointing out that are just nuts. Also, like the 2000 zombie release being what it is. But those two guys, they were like, you know what? This is we're excited for next season, etc. And you know what? HA, you know where we're going to be next time Fear the Walking Dead airs? Glued to our TVs.
I don't know about that. Although I do like the webisode that you pointed out to me. The plane webisode was more exciting than this whole season.
Ha.
And it was a minute and 25 seconds long.
Yeah, all right. I mean, yeah, it was pretty good, right? Like it was.
Yeah, no, it was
except
good.
for the angry.
The angry woman who just can't respect her own space.
The window closing is so egregious.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the webisode, I think it's going to be a lengthy, 16 episodes, but each one is probably going to be 90 seconds long, so we're not going to get too far into the story.
Indeed.
But yeah, so we'll be watching that. We've got The Walking Dead is coming back to TV this Sunday on October 8th.
Which is very exciting.
10th, 12th, 11th. And... yeah, but we're done with Fear the Walking Dead, I guess. Is there anything else you want to talk about with this episode?
Not really.
Yeah. So it was pretty good, but it wasn't good enough.
I would say it was okay. I would not say it was pretty good. It was better.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty good. Even with all my bitching. I feel like a lot of that's just pent up over trying to stay positive Although obviously the last two episodes we haven't been very positive. Maybe it's just now I'm like, I'm on track. I've got inertial bad vibes about this show. But
All right. Well, let's talk about what we should talk about next week then.
so Cooties, I feel like should be the logical choice.
Agreed. Let's do it.
We're gonna watch Cooties. We're gonna review the hell out of it, and we're gonna love it.
We
Maybe.
are. Even if it kills us.
Yeah. Indeed. Go out and read yourself some reviews, HA. I think you'll find that it's a mixed bag.
It's probably going to anger me even more, I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe. But until next time, I guess we're going to be heading out, and we'll be doing Cooties next time, so be sure to join us for episode 87.
87. Almost at 100. We don't have that many more.
Yeah, it's going to be a blowout.
It will be. Okay. So until next time, ciao.
Adios.